Have you ever built a respected company, kept loyal people around for years, and still felt like the business was eating up all your time, energy, and peace of mind? And what if the way forward wasn't more hustle, working harder, but better systems, clearer roles, and a business that no longer depends on you doing everything yourself? You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com, where it's all about systematizing your construction business to maximize freedom, impact, and wealth. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies over the past 12 years eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and grow their team. Today on the show, we're diving into a question that a lot of construction business owners wrestle with. How do you go from being the one holding everything together to building a company that runs with more clarity, more control, and a whole lot less stress? To help us answer that, we're joined by Daaron Yester, owner of DYC Framing, a framing contractor in Southern California who has spent around 30 years in the business, built some incredible high-end custom projects, and learned firsthand what it takes to turn a company around when the pressure starts to close in. In this episode, you'll hear why strong systems actually create a better client experience, how getting the right people into the right roles can free you up to focus on what matters most, and why knowing your numbers can completely change the trajectory of your business. You'll also hear what happened when Daaron realized that he was letting his clients and job site chaos dictate the way that his company operated, and how that shift in mindset started helping him run the business on purpose again. So if you're ready to stop carrying the whole load yourself and start building a construction business that creates more freedom, impact, and wealth for you, stick around for this episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. Here's my interview with Daaron Yester. Enjoy. Daaron, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here.
So we got to meet in person a couple of weeks ago at our live meetup in Cancun. Let's talk about your business a little bit. What's the name of your company? What kind of work do you do? And where are you located?
The name of my company is DYC Framing Inc. We are a framing trade contractor, and we work in pretty much all over the Coachella Valley, which is the Palm Springs area of Southern California.
So can you talk about the scale of some of the projects that you do?
Yeah, it's a really great market out here. There's a lot of wealthier people that have their winter homes out here, but there's some really interesting projects we have built. You know, first of all, we'll do anything from the smallest bathroom remodel to the largest, exclusively just do the big stuff, but we've been fortunate to get some really large projects. We just completed a 30,000 square foot home at the racetrack out in Thermal. It's like 10,000 square foot garage with a car lift on the first level, 10,000 square foot garage on the second level, and a 10,000 square foot custom home at the top that overlooks the racetrack. We've also done some properties that are like 40 acres with like a 20,000 square foot main house, 6 casitas down one side, and 4 guest houses on the other side of the lake with a jet ski lake and islands and a Margaritaville beach bar. Just some really interesting properties that people come up with, and we're happy to do.
What are some misconceptions people have about working with ultra wealthy clients, or maybe some things that they should be aware of that they may not be aware of?
The type of person that is either wealthy or regular folk, however you want to define that, it's the same personalities tend to run across the group. You can have really uptight people in the low end and really uptight people in the high end. You can have really wonderful salts of the earth people that are super rich. You wouldn't know it unless you were working on their project. And really great people on the low end as well. It's all kinds of people. You know, we will get some tough clients that are worried about every penny and think everybody's ripping them off. And we'll get some other clients that are like, okay, I've hired you because you come highly recommended. You're very professional, and I'm going to trust you in that process. Of course, those are the ones we love working with, because we are going to approach every job, whether it's large or small, with the same level of integrity. The pricing is what it is, regardless of how much money you have. So I have found people to be kind of the same no matter where they are in the economic scale.
Take us back to the genesis story of the business.
I basically worked for a very good framing contractor who worked in my same niche for 10 years. And he put up with me in my very early years, taught me a lot, signed my license, and off I went into the wild blue yonder and ultimately ended up working in some of the same circles as him. He was just a wonderful boss to work for. But what's really interesting is I grew up in the restaurant business. My folks owned a restaurant my whole life, and I was working in the hotel industry, and I just wanted to work outside. I didn't like the schedule. And I was working in this large hotel in Palm Springs called Maxime's in the back kitchen, and a guy was framing, this kind of crazy guy he was cooking on the line at night. He was a single guy, so he's working 2 jobs, cooking on the line at night and framing during the day. And I made friends with him, and he got me my very first framing job. And took me to National Lumber, which this is long before Home Depot days. And we went to National Lumber and put together a set of bags for me. And I went out to the job the next day at La Quinta Hotel and went up to the foreman and told him I was a carpenter and I wanted a job. And he looked right at me and said, "No, you're not." And then I spent about the next month packing lumber from one side of the job to the other. The rest is kind of history. The really interesting thing about that is, maybe 15 years after I got my license, I ended up becoming that guy who had moved into the GC realm. I ended up becoming his framing contractor and did a couple $1 million worth of work with him. Had a great relationship before he retired.
How long have you been in business, Daaron?
Right around 30 years.
Talk to us a little bit about the size of your company. How many employees do you have? That kind of thing.
We really pretty much the last 10 years average around 30 team members. Many of my people have been with me pushing 15 to 20 years. I'm super grateful for that. Started out small like most guys with, 2 or 3 guys. And at one time before the crash of '08, we were running 50 guys. And I don't even know how we did that. After the crash, went back down to me and another guy with my bags back on for a while. And then as we built back up again, I kind of made the decision I never really wanted to get much larger because I didn't feel like I had the foundation for it. I probably do now if I really wanted to. I think we'll do about 5 million this year. 6 millions are usually big years for us. We've had a couple of $4 million years, and we can talk about that. That was kind of a problem that led us into finding SYCB and getting the help that I've gotten.
You've been through 2008 and probably a few bumps even before then. What are some of the lessons that you've learned having gone through some of the worst financial crises in the last 20 to 30 years?
My very first one, I was working for my old boss, was 1991, and I was standing on a roof in the Vintage in Indian Wells, and that's when all the S&Ls went under. And Columbia went under, and it just felt like I've never seen a tap get turned off that quick. We would leave our houses in the morning and go knock on doors to try to find fascia and patio covers for little old ladies to fix because our jobs just went away. I remember going through another one with the tech bubble, and then '08, and then, that was a huge and slow climb out again. A little bit before COVID, it slowed down again. I think the big lesson for me is what goes up will come down. There's probably value in that. There's things you learn in the slow times you never learn in the fast times. I don't know about other business owners. Sometimes when things are good for a long time, I can get a little complacent, take my foot off the pedal a little bit. I just know that it's going to come around again. Sometimes it feels like when it's good, it's never going to slow down again. And that's a bad mindset to get in because it will. It is a secular business. You got to try to plan for that, but you also got to understand for it. One of the lessons I've learned is that when it slows down, the worst thing you can do is be slow in reacting, which you have all these families relying on you, all these team members, but if you don't trim your expenses, you don't trim your team down fast enough, you're just going to blow through your money really fast, and it's going to hurt everybody in the long run. So it's a little bit of, hey, you got to cut a little bit of pain now to save a few other people, or you can let the problem spread and it's going to affect everybody.
The mindset, this too shall pass, it's probably appropriate. If it's really good, this too shall pass. It is going to change. And I've interviewed and talked to so many people who started their business in 2008, 2009. And what was really interesting was they were very grateful that they did, because the discipline that they had to have to start a business at that time is what made them successful. It was really easy for people to get started in 2021 after the housing boom, after COVID. I've talked to people who thought, oh, it's just magical. It's easy. The work just, it's like a Dumb and Dumber. The beer is flowing like wine, kind of a thing. And they just like, it's always going to be easy. I don't know what everybody's talking about. And this too shall pass, if that's what you're thinking. You have some long tenure employees. A lot of people in the construction industry really struggle with retention. They think, these people want to jump ship and nobody wants to stick around, and that's just what they believe. How have you managed to keep people around for such a long time? Are there some practical tips you can share?
I love construction and I love the operations. I love cutting roofs. I love being in the field, and I like people. So I would spend a lot of my time there. I think ultimately, people will put their trust in you if they know that you know what you're doing and you're competent. But I say that also to say that I also was really not very good at the business side. I was really good at construction, not very good at the money side. And I've gotten better. By the grace of God, I've had to, I wouldn't still be here. But I have always, of everything that goes on in my business, the number one thing that is going to happen come hell or high water, no matter what, is my guys are going to get paid, and they're going to get paid on time. I mean, I've been paying people for 30 years, and I think I've been late twice, and maybe by a day or two. With that and many other things, I've always really tried to communicate a huge priority to my guys that they really matter to me. So I know them, I know their families, I ask about their kids, what's going on with them. And I have a little bit of a ministry background too. So people talk to me about their problems, and I always make sure that I take the time to really care about that. It's not anything I have to fake, but, to find out what's going on with them. And, people need things, people need to borrow money. People can't make their rent. People, need some time off, or people are going through maybe a bout of, some alcoholism or something. People need someone to just not kick them off the bus the minute things aren't going exactly right too. So I think there's a boundary line there for sure, but I think I've just really tried to communicate that, and somehow it must have gotten through, because generally speaking, people just feel well treated. They know that I'm making them a priority, that I'm not just here for me. And that's, just a feeling I've always had in my life. This business isn't just for me. I mean, it is for me and my family, but it's for all of them. I'm not just taking care of my family, I'm taking care of all these families. Well, that's a huge responsibility to bear, but I think that, having that mindset is maybe really lets people know that they are cared about. They're not just a number.
I've talked with owners who would say that the business is just there for them, and the business exists to support them. And I would say their people can feel that. Yeah. So we're recording this in March 2026. We first spoke back in July of 2025. And I'm curious, what were some of the things you were dealing with, challenges, issues, frustrations that led you to reach out to us initially?
Yeah, I had gone through a period of time where I was borrowing money to sustain the business. That was not sustainable. I had never really had to do that before. I had a really nice year the year before, and so I owed a bunch of taxes because I had made a bunch of money. And I like to follow that up with a really bad year, so I have no money to pay those taxes with. I had a lower revenue year. I was having some real money struggles. I was having to do things I really didn't want to do. My wife was not happy that I was doing these things. And I was just having one of those moments where I was like, all right, I can either get curious and I can try to learn something here, or I can, try to get out. And I really didn't want to do that. Wasn't in that position. There was a lot of other factors with everybody else involved. And I had been through this before. I had gone through this in, around 14 or 15, where I had really had some bad run. I remember sitting in the parking lot of my lumber supplier, owing them all this money, and, just praying, God, help me find some help here. And I had Googled and I had found some business coaching back then, some construction-based things that were helpful for a period of time. And I had turned it around a little bit. So I kind of found myself in that same position. So a little light bulb comes on, and I started Googling around, and I'm looking for specific construction business help. And I found the podcast. I just started listening to it, and it was just speaking to a lot of things that were totally what I was going through, problems that I was facing. situations that I was dealing with. That led me to reach out to you, and we kind of started that whole process, and that was really good. I remember the first time you talked to me, we kind of did a little assessment and we started throwing some round numbers out there. I pretty much was on the floor when I realized how much money was going out the door just on, wasted change orders and rework and productivity issues. And, and then, you throw on top of that all the money I'm paying to borrow this money. The amount of money that business funding, what they're charging you for that business funding is nuts. I don't even know how it's legal. There was just a lot of money being wasted, and it became really obvious talking with you. So this became a no-brainer for me to go through the program.
Yeah. So I'm curious, we talked about our Systematize Your Construction Business program and the details of that. You joined that program and have continued on and done a great job with that. But I'm curious, before you pulled the trigger and joined, what was your biggest concern?
I knew that this was unsustainable. Like I was not going to be in business another 6 months. Because, even though I was not having some good years, I had accumulated some wealth. I'm almost 6 years old. I'm planning on retiring. I've been saving money for the last 10 years. And I knew if I didn't change, I was going to lose all that money as well that I had saved up for my retirement, all the property and everything that I had accumulated. And so I was going to lose the ground I'd made, and I was going to lose the business I was in, and I was going to let down. I take all this responsibility. While that's a burden, it also is a blessing, and it keeps me motivated and keeps me moving. And I'm like, I just can't let all these people down. I don't know what I would do, honestly, emotionally, if I lost this business at this point. I would probably have some real failure syndrome that I would have to deal with too. I just don't think it was an option for me to not find some answers. And, again, by the grace of God, there you were. And I was able to, keep moving on this.
So you enrolled in our Systematize Your Construction Business program. You did a great job following the process, jumped right in. Take us to the moment in the program when you realized that these systems that you were implementing and the changes you were making in your business were actually working to solve some of those problems.
It's funny. I had thought myself, because I don't want to sound presumptuous here, but I'm one of the higher reputation guys in my area. I've been here forever. I'm very well known. We're known to do a good job. I had somewhat considered myself to be a sophisticated businessman and contractor at this point, but obviously the results were saying otherwise. Once I got into the program, I really realized how much more room for growth there was, how, for lack of a better way of putting it, unsophisticated I really was. There was a lot of things I could have been doing that I wasn't doing, partially because I wasn't looking and I didn't know. So I just learned so much in the program. I'm a little more of a right brain, creative, emotional guy. And the program really it really taught me the value of structure and systems in my business and how, I can get some outcomes that I can count on if I can create some systems that we can repeat. One of the things we immediately implemented was a serious tracking of all change orders, extras, and rework in my business. I mean, it was one of the first things we did within a first couple of weeks. And even just feeling the traction of catching all that money that was leaking. It was a boat with some big leaks in it, or a vessel that was holding all this water and it was all leaking out. We were probably only getting half the bucket up the hill. So once we started capturing all that rework, that was one of the initial signs that this was going to be a good process for us, because we just started catching up on it. And then we moved on to productivity issues within the company, which I thought was going to be a humongous issue in the company, and actually turned out to not be, but it was really good to get a good look at it and see, to actually, not to just base things on feelings or hope. I love the term that I heard in the program of hopium. Well, positive thinking will only get you so far without actually knowing what's actually going on. We began to really get into numbers, really get into systems that really made things, there was a way things were going to be done, and it helped us capture our money and keep our money and not waste things and be more productivity. And that was just a real eye opener. I would say the other thing that really happened, and I don't know if it's like this for everybody in the program, but I came to clarity very quickly about how to organize my company. And I don't know that everybody is as fortunate as I am. I feel very fortunate that I actually had the people in place They were already there to do the jobs that needed to be done. The problem was I was trying to do all the jobs instead of putting people in their place and letting them run. So I got a lot of clarity very quickly about how to organize my business. And I took my lead operations guy. He and I had been doing the same thing and just let him simply go into operations. I took my daughter, who has been running my office, and made her the CFO of the company, from better, more or less than the term would go. Put her in charge of the finances. Of course, I watch over everything. But instead of trying to do it all, I put them in their roles, and it really allowed me to free up and just focus on the thing that really needed the effort in my business, which was my estimating and sales. I feel like my business is a locomotive, and I'm the guy in the back shoveling the coal in. The engine's running good. The guys in the field, the leadership team, they know what they're doing. Everybody knows how I want it done. It's getting done. Generally speaking, the clients are happy. But it didn't have anybody shoveling the fuel in to keep the motor running. And it was because I was trying to do everything. I didn't have time to do that to the extent that I should have. So I got a lot of clarity very early on, and that clarity has remained. And, we went through a process of accountability chart of, setting up the company, but I just was really blown away by how quickly everything kind of cleared up in my mind. And, when things are clear in your mind, man, there's a lot more peace. There's a lot less stress. You know where you're going. Your decisions come a lot easier because you have a framework now to make them in. And when you don't have clarity, you're kind of bouncing around like a ping pong ball, trying to deal with things and just kind of doing whatever the next thing is, putting out the fires, as they say. So that was like one of the big things early on for me.
I remember on one of our group calls in the program, you said something about who was running your business, and you made a decision, came to a conclusion about who was running your business and who you wanted to run your business.
I'm a really accommodating person, and I really strove to be customer service oriented, and my clients love that. But there became a point where that was crossing the line. And I deal with a lot of people that are, they're trying to do the best they can too, but they don't have a lot of system in place either. They will come in and say, I want this crew over here doing this, and I want these guys over here doing that. You guys need to stop doing that and move over to this side of the house. And things like that, of that nature. There were many other examples like that, but I realized that I was allowing my GCs in their organizational ways or problems to run my business instead of me. And I'm like, this is DYC Framing. I'm here, to serve you and to provide for you. But, when you estimate the job, you estimate it with a certain path and progress and a way things are going to get done. And when you're bouncing around like a ping pong ball, you're not making money. You're losing money. And it all is because of everybody's frantically trying to keep somebody else happy and meet some schedule, which, I understand the value of those things. But yeah, I was really felt like I was letting some particular situations really run me. It was time to put my foot down and say, no, this is us, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we need to do it. There's a lot of diplomacy that needs to go on there. You just don't tell your GCs, stick in your ear. That's not what you do. It needs to become obvious that you are running the show as far as your part is, And you had said something to me as well. You had given me some advice in that process of learning that you had experienced somebody in your past too that wanted to run your crew, and you were like, why don't you just tell me what the goal is and I'll get us there. Don't tell me how to reach the goal. You just tell me what the goal is. And that made a lot of sense to me. I know what their schedules are, and I know what they need to get done, and I can be accommodating, but let me decide what the best way is for my team to achieve the goals that we both want, instead of you running me, because there's no way a GC can run every trade in that place and have everybody doing what they should be doing. That's a recipe for a bad job.
There are a lot of people who feel like I'm working in a very relationship-driven business, repeat clients, or maybe they're custom home builders working with multi-million-dollar clients, and they feel like they can't have systems. They feel like they have to be what I would call a Burger King builder, which is like, you can have it your way, and we'll just wrap our business around how you want to do it. And some people would say, well, I can't have systems and processes because I have to do what my clients want. And that keeps them stuck in that chaos. How have you found that having these systems and processes helps you be more successful with your clients who maybe in the past you felt like you had to let them have it their way?
I think let's just straight to the point that I know that they are experiencing a more professional experience now than they did last year. I'm already getting that feedback. Overall, the way we are now operating, they're feeling like we are less chaotic, more organized, and more clear on what we're doing. And that seems to translate into less control on us. But I also think there is a misconception that just because you're dealing with wealthy clients that you have to bow and, grovel for every request. I'm not going to buy that lie anymore. I think you can run into those type of clients at all ends of the spectrum of affordability. That's not a good recipe for good business, a good experience, or making money. And why are we here if we can't have any of those? I think you just got to stand your ground and have a little more boundaries. Most people respect it. And most people actually enjoyed that experience more than the one where you're trying to, be a people pleaser.
I've been on both sides of this, and I've been an owner's rep. I've been the general contractor. I've been the subcontractor. And I can tell you, as a buyer of construction services, I didn't want to have to lead the process. I wanted to be able to delegate those results to general contractors and trade contractors and suppliers. And if I had to step in and control the process, it's because I'd lost confidence. So my advice to people, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I have to let these GCs or wealthy homeowners dictate the process, that's a downward spiral you don't want to get into. And they want somebody, the right people, the right clients want their partner to lead the process because they're not, for the most part, professional customers. They want to trust somebody. If they are telling you every move to make, it's because very likely they don't have confidence and they feel like they have to. Decide who's going to run your business. Is it going to be you or is it going to be your clients? So I'm curious, we've talked about a few things you've done, Daaron. What would you say are the top one or two most impactful systems or processes that you've implemented in your business as a result of what you've learned in our program?
The number one thing is we've clarified roles and put people in the places, and that has freed me up to focus on the area that I need to focus on. I have a statement I say often these days, and that is, if you try to do everything, you don't do anything well. I started in business as a guy with a pickup truck and a checkbook and a glove box. And so for me, it was do everything. You did the work, you did the jobs, you met the clients, you dealt with the guys. You came home, you did the estimates, you did the bookkeeping, you did the billing, and that was one thing 30 years ago when it was me and a couple of guys. At this level, you just can't do everything. And I was still trying to do everything. And I'm a little bit of a control freak, just like, everybody is. And the more things get out of control, you'll notice the more control you try to apply and the worse things spiral. That was probably the number one thing, is that I completely put the people in the roles, and I already had them. I was so fortunate, and let them go. And it took them a little while to get the confidence that I wasn't going to come in and undercut them and second guess them. And then that freed me up to focus on coaching, to focus on learning, to focus on overseeing them, and to focus on sales and estimating and feeding this locomotive that I'm pushing right now. The second one that was really huge for me is I had to get into my numbers. Because I'm a kind of a right brain, I love people, I love cutting roofs, I love geometry, that's all fun stuff for me. Profit and loss, not so much. And so because I didn't love it, I avoided it. And because I was so busy with everything else, I told myself I never had time. And so really getting deeply into my numbers has been a huge game changer for me. When I got in there and I took my overhead apart, my indirect costs, and I broke them down by month, and I actually did my margin, and I found out I was way off on my markup, and it wasn't the good way. You can wonder why you're not making it, but once you get in the numbers, you can find, for me, I found that the problem's pretty quick. So that was really good for me, and now I have really just become very focused on the numbers. You guys have a really great program that I use on a regular basis called RevMax. It's very overwhelming when you first look at it. But once you get used to the program, you can really start to see where your money's going and see how things are going and begin to forecast. and even see what revenue targets you need to hit and what billing needs to get done, and then take that to what work needs to get done so you can do that billing. So that was tremendously helpful for me. And then the other thing that I've worked on tremendously is with my markup is my estimating process. Because I was trying to do everything, work all day to go meet all the guys and the clients and fix the problems, and then come home and try to estimate it, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can imagine the quality estimates I was putting out on these 6,000 and 7,000 square foot one-off custom homes no one's ever built before, built by these gee whiz architects, or trying to draw something that no one's ever seen before. These things need to be done slowly, carefully, and methodically. And I was doing them quickly, tiredly, and not with a lot of passion. And, that's leading. You got a bad estimate, that's just going to kill you right off the bat. You know what I mean? That's the start of this whole process right here. And that's something I'm still working on. And that's something I'm getting a lot of coaching on through the Alliance, through the CEO Alliance with you guys. But I am really refining my estimating process. But I can do that now because I have time, because I'm not trying to run everybody else.
What are some of the big differences between your day-to-day schedule, how you spend your time now versus a year ago before you started in our program?
I would say for better, for worse, because I would prefer to be in the field, but I spend a lot more time in the office now. I have a really great operations guy. I've been implementing some different ways to stay in touch with my guys, but I'm really in the field maybe 1 day a week now. I spend my time in the office, handling the things that matter to make sure my numbers are right, to make sure I know where this thing is going, and to make sure that my estimates are done quickly. I've learned with my clients that if you're slow to return their estimate, that also may communicate you're slow to provide the service if you do win the job. Someone gave me the term in your group that I think Monish gave it to me, of eager estimating. It may have been you. And I try to practice eager estimating now. So when I get a set of plans or I get an invite, I respond quickly. I get things done. I get it in the backlog. I keep people updated on what I'm doing, and I try to estimate this as professionally as possible as a way to get my feet off, to get this walk with this client started on the best foot forward from the very get-go. And I found that little momentum will carry into the whole job. But to do that, I have to spend my days in the office. That's been the biggest change for me. I've gotten healthier in the last couple years, and I can get in the gym in the morning. I have a gym in my house and, a workout room for I can spend my time doing that. I'm home here in the mornings. My office is in my home. I probably will need to move out of here at some point, because there's a whole nother discussion about distraction that goes on about having a home office and how good your work is when you're constantly distracted by a million things. But it is really a blessing to be able to get up and, do my stuff in the morning, have my morning, play my guitar, get in the gym, and then get in the office and be productive and, still be around the family and have the grandkids come through in the afternoons. And because I'm not trying to run the field, I'm not taking as many appointments, I'm also freed up in my schedule. I don't work most Fridays anymore. I can be done earlier, obviously, because I'm not trying to come home and do all this stuff later. I also don't have the head trash of feeling guilty for sitting on the couch at 5 o'clock because there's still 20 things that need doing. I don't have estimates hanging over me anymore. I don't have P&Ls hanging over me anymore, because I'm actually facing them and doing them in the office. That actually, when I decide to go shut the door at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever time I decide to be done, because I'm done, I'm mentally a lot freer. So that's a real good quality of life thing for me.
What would you say to that construction business owner who feels like they have to go talk to, be the face to the client, have to go talk to the field crews every day? What would you tell them?
I really have felt that pulley. And as I've been in the office more and less in the field, I've actually had a good discussion with my CEO Alliance friends about, have I gone too far the other way of being in the office? But I have found that if they're getting the professional service, and as even on the business end of it, on the upfront with the estimating and the billing and all that stuff, they seem to be pretty happy. Now, again, I have a really great operations guy. I have, like 5 job site foremen that are all 10 to 15 year guys. Everybody knows them. So there's a lot of comfort with my team. I would tell people to really spend your time building your team. because that's the people that are, it's not really you trying to do, and you guys teach us this, so you don't need to do more. You need to find the people and put the time into training them to do the things so you don't have to do everything. I still stay in pretty good contact with my clients. I've learned, I got some good advice again from the CEO Alliance. I'll do a weekly update or a bi-weekly update with my guys, or I'll send them a text letting them know these are the jobs that are coming in. These are the estimates going out, not specific numbers, but just letting them know, hey, there's a lot going on. Darren's not, sitting on his butt. He's working, but also let them know, hey, there's work out there and it's coming our way and we're landing some jobs and this is what it's looking like in the next month or two. That really communicates a lot of security to them that they're going to have a job, that things are being taken care of. Because I do think you still need to communicate to everybody, even if they don't see you, that things are being taken care of, things are being planned, and things are being done professionally. So I'll do that with my clients too. I'll give a Friday check-in with them if they don't see me. Even though they're dealing with my operations guy and their job site foreman and they're happy, I'll check in with them and say, hey, how you doing? How's the experience going for you? And I'll get some feedback. Hey, I didn't like this, or hey, I thought you were going to do that. And that's fine. They need to communicate, but at least they know I'm here. But I would rather do that than, burn, what am I got, $6 a gallon diesel right here in California. Driving around. It's an hour to some of my job sites from my office, to just spend all that time driving, eating fast food, and just wasting a lot of time, and then being stressed because I'm not able to do the things I can do. I'm real fortunate, but I would say work on building the people that are going to be your point of contact, and then find other ways. There's not just one way to do things. Our old construction thing. There's lots of ways to skin a cat, but you still end up with an ugly cat. There's a lot of ways to stay in contact with people. And once you start looking for different methods, they start coming to you. So I've gotten some great advice from my CEO Alliance people.
So you've done a great job of actually implementing these things and getting them to stick. A lot of people struggle implementing change and getting people to change. What would you say are one or two keys to implementing systems and actually getting people on your team to change?
Well, the first thing was an epiphany I had with you. And that was like, if I even do 20% of the things you teach me, I'm going to be money ahead here. I have implemented a lot more than that. And it's been a dramatic change. So I would just say even a little bit of implementation is better than giving up. But I would also say that I have learned some really healthy ways of accountability from the program. I love the accountability that I experience here, because it's not accountability that comes to you and says, hey, this is what you should be doing, and this is what I think you should be doing, and why aren't you doing what I told you to do? It's nothing like that. It is like, what do you think you should be doing? Okay, well, I think I should be doing this, that, and the other. And then it comes back to, well, how's it going? Did you do it? No. Okay, well, why didn't you do it? Oh, did you change your mind? Or do you feel like it's something you need to do? You're just procrastinating. And that's a really healthy accountability. And I've even heard statements like, hey, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to hold you accountable to what you said you needed to do. What you agreed was the best course of action. And I think that's been a really healthy accountability mindset. And it's really interesting because, and I don't think everybody this way, but when you come to a program like this and you're investing your time and your resources in it, it's a lot easier to be humble than if, somebody just is randomly telling you what you need to change in your life, So I think that's true. I think the other thing too is that I've learned, and I think I really learned this more talking to you early on, is that you just need to be patient in your accountability. I implemented a weekly update program with my operations guy and my finance girl. And, it took a while to say, it's Friday afternoon. I would like to see a weekly update, and I've explained the reason I want this weekly update. And it's not just for me you to tell me what you're doing. It's for you to think through your last week and to think through your next week before it ever gets here, so that we're planning ahead. Because that's a productivity problem if you're not planning ahead. And I just have to reiterate that. And, we're pretty much on schedule now where these weekly updates come to me. But, once in a while I'll have to go, hey, I didn't see it. A lot of times I didn't get my weekly update on Friday from my operations guy. First thing Monday morning, in the middle of our check-in phone call, he's, I forgot to do it, and so he got it out to me. But I would say that, you just kind of got to patiently and in a non-weird way, whatever that means to you. To me, it means don't be a jerk. Remind and keep a healthy pressure on people to achieve goals. And I probably need to get better at this. The goals are better if they're their goals than if they're yours. I'm a really great dreamer and I come up with all these systems and I want to tell people what they should do. One of the things I've learned from you guys is their plan that is halfway good is way better than my plan that's perfect. Because if my plan is perfect, probably won't get done. So anything you can do to get them to buy in is good, but you just need to be patient in that process.
That's really good advice. Sometimes we expect the people to suddenly change overnight and then get really frustrated when they don't change over the course of 7 days. And it takes a while to turn that ship. Yeah, that's good advice. Be patient, let them set their goals, let go of control about how it's going to be done, which is tough for some of us who are micromanagers and control freaks, and just be satisfied with the end result and let them get there the way they want to. Yeah, I like that. So you've mentioned the CEO Alliance a little bit. You joined that program a few months ago. How would you describe the CEO Alliance in your own words? And what has being in that group done for you, Daaron?
I almost feel like the CEO Alliance has almost been more important to me than the SYCB. Just to get with a group of people that are going through the same thing I'm going through, have the same battles and concerns, and be able to get advice, and not even get advice, even just listen to them go through their process, their stuff, and get advice from people in a very specific business mode that not very many people understand. I mean, how many of in your friend group outside of work can you talk to about? And even in my contractor group, I have offered my help to so many contractors. There is a very independent, I can do it, autonomous mindset in construction. And so to be in a group of people that are trying to help each other understand this isn't easy, comfortable with their bringing their problems and flaws to the table and getting some help has been tremendously helpful. I really love the group I'm in. I adore the people in my group. I'm so grateful that I even get to be part and get to share with them. They're super wonderful. I love finding out they're just as kind of messy as I am with things, and they have some of the same and some other difficulties. So, we're all fighting these dragons together.
You came to your first live meetup with the CEO Alliance a couple of weeks ago in Cancun. What would you say to somebody who's considering coming to one of these events?
It was really interesting to sit in that room with, a couple dozen other contractors. Everybody, I mean, there was one guy in there doing 40 million a year. There's one guy in there doing $1 million a year, just all over the spectrum, all different places in life. To realize we all are a little bit messy and we're all just trying to figure this out. There was a lot of similarities. There was a guy in there whose daughter is running half his business, and she was struggling a little bit with feeling like she belonged because she was the guy's daughter. And I know my daughter struggles with exactly the same feeling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so competent. We have every right to have a seat at the table. Just because you're my daughter doesn't disqualify you. It was so neat to see other people with the same struggles. Very meaningful experience. This is my first one I went to. It was a little tough as we did some inversion and kind of tore things down before we built them back up again. But I really value clarity, as I spoke about earlier, but going through the 10-year plan and really visualizing what my life looks like in 10 years, not just based on emotion and, bad pizza, but based on some real markers and a real plan, and to do it with a bunch of other people figuring it out at the same time. That was tremendously meaningful. To do some hot seat stuff. I'm used to being in a little bit of hot seat groups in a spiritual setting, but never to have it done in a business where you bring your problem to the table and people ask questions and then they all give you input, and very honest and direct input. That has a tendency to kind of blow up the blockages in the mind that won't allow you to see things from a different perspective. And you can start to see things a little bit differently. I remember I was sitting in one hot seat, probably with you in it one time, and someone asked me, are you sure you're the right guy that should be doing your estimating? That was like stabbing a 30-year contractor in the heart who's never allowed anybody but him to do the estimating. That was the first time in my life I kind of went, oh, maybe this isn't my strength. Not something I would let go of. So I found a lot of value in that. And then, we would go through these really heavy, I don't know if I would call them heavy days, but very meaningful, dense days of learning and considering things. And then we would just go hang out and have the best afternoons together and process. And I mean process by not talking about too much. And then have some nice dinners. And oh my gosh, it was so lovely. You guys should probably come up with some kind of program where we could bring some key people with us too, that might work for them too, because I would love to bring my key people to this so that they could get the benefit that I got out of it. And imagine a company where you had a lot of synergy, where a lot of people were all clicking on with the same mindset, that would really make some difference.
So I'm curious, if somebody called you and said, "Hey, Daaron, I'm thinking about signing up for this Systematize Your Construction Business program. It looks like a good fit, but I'm not sure," what would you tell them?
Even if it helped you a quarter of the way, you're going to be so far much further ahead, even if you don't do it all the way. There's so much value here that even if you do a little bit of it, it's going to change your life. It has really freed me up emotionally and mentally. My stress level has gone tremendously down. My clarity has gone tremendously up. And when your clarity and your hope goes up, your hopefulness goes up. When your stress goes down, your irritability goes down. So you can just imagine how that translates into your marriage, how that translates into your family relationships. It also translates the way you treat your clients, the way you treat your guys or your people, whoever you're dealing with. Just for that's worth the price of admission just right there. It's made that big of a difference for me.
I'm glad to hear that. I really appreciate it. What is one thing you believe to be true about business that some people might think is a little unconventional, maybe even crazy? Anything come to mind?
I just think the tools you need are probably already within your reach. You just don't see them. So I realized the people I needed were already there. I just didn't have them organized right. I didn't see them right. I didn't see it right. So I don't know if anyone would think that's crazy, because I'll spiritualize that and just say what I needed was already there. It had already been provided for me. I just didn't know how to grasp it, place it, treat it yet. So that's something I believe to be true for me. And then the other thing I think is a crazy thing to believe is that you can get where you want to go without help. That's not a sensible thought. And it wasn't for me. I know everybody's different, but if you think everything you need is within you as a person, you are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on yourself. You need to get help. And this program, your resources, I think, are really one of the great ways that contractors can get help. It's a lonely job, man. A lonely job. You're making payroll, you're paying bills, you're trying to do it all. You're carrying a huge amount of responsibility with all these people relying on you. You're dealing with crazy sometimes. It's just a lot of stress. And to try to handle that all on your own, I don't think it's good for us mentally, physically, spiritually.
Why do you think we do that? Why do you think we feel like we have to do it alone? Is it a conscious decision? Is it just we never even think about asking for help?
Honestly, I think it's our Gen Xers. We were the latchkey kids. We were raised by parents whose form of parenting was, if you're going to cry, let me give you something to cry about. You got a problem, go figure it out. You got in a fight with Johnny, you guys go figure it out. So I don't know if that translated into a high level of independence. I don't see that same level of independence in my kids. But then I also think it's a guy thing, and I know there's a lot of ladies in the construction industry now, and that's awesome. A lot of guys, we have come to some form of belief that, everything that we need for life to be successful should come from within us, and we don't reach out for help enough. And, we just need help.
If somebody's traveling through your area, what town is that? And then what's the one place they should visit? Restaurant, cocktail bar, beer joint, etc., that they absolutely should not miss if they're traveling through that area?
Pappy and Harriet's Pioneer Town Palace. You cannot miss this place. I live in Morongo Valley, which is between Palm Springs and Joshua Tree. It's a really lovely little town to live in. Joshua Tree is a very happening place these days. People all over the country travel there, but we get a ton of LA people. The people here like to call the hipsters are all here. But there is this kind of old bar of mudded together bottles and bricks that this guy and his wife named Pappy and Harry built in the late 70s. And it was just a hangout for every desert rat and drifter that was around. And it has since turned into a place of the best steaks, the strangest people, and amazing music. And I would highly recommend. It's a whole experience to go to this place. And it's quite known because some bands will come do practice shows, like large bands. I mean, they've had a couple stagecoaches ago Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert when they're having dinner. I mean, Paul McCartney's played there. A lot of really good bands will come through there and do practice shows on the DL, and no one will know. And then all of a sudden, somebody will get a whiff in town, as the locals will find out. But they just do great steaks over mesquite, great drinks, and then, man, just people watching is off the hook. So that's where I would go.
I'll definitely take you up on that if I ever pass through that area. Well, Daaron, great stuff, man. It's been a pleasure working with you through SYCB, watching you implement, doing a great job, seeing the results, seeing the change in your mindset and approach has been really good. And it was a blast hanging out with you in Cancun a couple of weeks ago, and look forward to continuing to watch the results stack up as you keep up the good work, man.
I appreciate you too and all you do. And my hope is prayers that this, whatever I share here, can help somebody down the road to get to a better spot, because life's a lot better on the other side, man.
100%. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have three options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option one is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option two, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number three, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping, I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our nail the handoff pre-construction process in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you could do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the Apply Now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review, or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. I'm Todd DeWalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.